skills called driving skills, bends and limit points. We are really doing a lot of good work in the observer resources field. So please, if you don't regularly visit it, please look at it. We'll talk to you later on as to where you can find it and access it. But everything you need for the associate's journey is in the advanced course logbooks and on the observer resources. So please familiarise yourself. Next one, Robbie. So, meeting and greeting the associate. This is where they get the first time to meet you and you to meet them, and you only get one chance to create a first impression. And it's important we set the right impression. Personal standards are important. If and where possible, use IM branded clothing or group branded clothing. You need to be looking at a clean, legal, roadworthy car or motorcycle. Yeah, we're all passionate, but make sure that we are setting an example with roadworthy vehicles and legal parts on the vehicle. Always demonstrate an exemplary attitude. Sounds straightforward. Be aware of your little traits and sense of humour sometimes, where we go a little bit beyond the pale, a little closer to the bones, not trying to be offensive, but some people may take it as an offence. Be very careful. For example, road safety cameras. They are not cash cows. They are there for a reason, and some people may have been adversely affected by people who've been speeding. Demonstrate advanced driving techniques and practices wherever possible. Don't do what you like to do. Do what it says in Roadcraft. Remember the customer-centered approach. The associate is the customer. They've bought the course. They've spent a lot of money. They want to get out of it the most that they can get, not what you want them to get. Respect the associate's personal space. A little example of this was before, when we didn't want them to change gear, we might touch the hand and say, just hold this gear. Things like that. Be very, very aware of invading that personal space. Yeah, and the IM Road Smart Risk Assessment, they're on the website, they're on the observer resources. Please be aware. They're all written for you to make it easy, but you must be aware of it. Cheers, Robbie. Be open, friendly, but professional at all times. Yeah, again, sense of humour can be a good tool, but it can also be offensive. Be very careful of your audience. You need a short introduction about yourself. We don't need to know about all your medals and all your pots and all your pans. It can be quite intimidating to an associate. So just keep your little introduction short and sweet. Just a little bit to say, I know what I'm talking about. You can trust me. Develop your own style. Be flexible with your approach. You know, be flexible with the associate. First meeting, what's the associate's driving and riding history? We're very good at that. We always get that, but it is important. And listen for the little clues as to why they're on the course. Don't forget the eyesight and document declaration. This is one of the things they miss quite often. You get dragged down a boulevard, a tangent boulevard, and we miss that. Legality and vehicle. What are the motivations for completing their course? Just ask them who purchased it, why did they purchase it, what do they want to gain, have they any concerns? Keep the session focused. Remember, review the previous development plan. The only time that you should set the agenda as an observer is on the very first session when you first met the candidate. You might want to do a review of the drive, a ride, and see where their line in the sand is. But after that, everything should be set around the development plan and the competency sheets. So make use of them. Also, whilst you're riding and driving, make notes, either physical notes or mental notes, and tell the associate what you're going to do, especially if you're in the car writing. And the main thing is use an aid memoir. Don't try and remember everything that's in the book. When we send out the guidance sheets, we tell you to use the guidance notes as an aid memoir. It will help you. There is far too much to remember. We're all human, we'll all forget things. So using the NOPS form or the candidate guidance notes will help you keep the session on track. Don't be afraid. You don't have to have a fantastic memory. David?
So, briefing the current guidance session, we're going to keep banging on about using these competency sheets. They're absolutely essential to set clear aims and objectives for the session. Explore the associate's level of understanding of what the competencies actually are and lots and lots of open questions to discuss with them what the associate understands by them. That way you'll be able to set those clear objectives, and it'll guide your debrief at the end of the session too. So allow them to find out what's working for them, what isn't working for them, and you'll only do this through open questions, lots and lots of open questions. To do that, and you're not only impressing on them the importance of the course material, but you're actually teaching them to understand the competencies and be an observer later on. But at the same time, try not to overload them. It's easy to try and tell them everything that you know, and it can sometimes be a little bit too much. So try to get them to to get to know your associate, trying to gauge how much they can take in, what their level of learning is, and gauge the delivery accordingly. Be encouraging with them. There's going to be times where you have to look quite deep to find something that they've done good, but praise them. It's going to just keep them motivated. We don't want them to go away disheartened and not wanting to practice between sessions and come back encouraged for the next go. So remember that whilst we encourage a systematic approach, we also want to develop that thinking approach and that thinking rider or driver. So use lots of effective open questions to gauge their level of understanding and get those thought processes embedded in the brain. Next slide, please, Rob. So in your brief, remember to cover the estimated time for the session, as I said earlier as well. Just see that you're fitting in with the associates' plans. And not only that, you don't want to be spending 3-4 hours on a session. You've got busy lives as well, and we bear that in mind as well. So remember to cover the time for the session. Consider the best way to deliver your directions when you're going to give you directions. If it's the bikes, consider, are you going to use radio? Are you going to use indicators in the car? Do they need extra guidance with directions? We're regularly doing left or right. As with the DVSA, there's lots of associates, lots of candidates that prefer that. Some even have it written on the hands, left and right, and all sorts. And the bikers, don't forget to cover the stopping and loss of contact protocols. That often gets missed. And of course, the verbal disclaimer, deliver that before you move off. And of course, the associates are going to be nervous, they're going to be worried. Engage them in conversation, try and bring those nerves down. The more open questions that you can give, the more conversation you can get going with them, should hopefully relax them. And before you get going on the ride or the drive, ask the associate if they have any questions before they get started, and obviously deal with them, deal with any answers appropriately. And next slide, please, Rob.
Now, this is an important one for everyone, bikes and cars, and possibly something we could consider discussing at the associates' first meeting or the group meeting, triage, as some people call it. We are a road safety organisation, and realistically, we should not be driving or riding in temperatures that are likely or could cause accidents and injuries. Now, this is a really good slide that's been put together by Scott and Sean, and if you look at the air temperature against the speed in miles per hour, with an outside temperature of 4 degrees at a speed of 40 miles per hour, the actual chill factor, the field, is -4. Now, whilst there might not be a chance of ice forming, to actually drive for 3 or 4 hours in -4 degrees is really, really gonna be hard work. And we as ASDMs, we never hesitate in looking at the weather forecast and saying, be aware, be prepared, this may be cancelled, especially during the early season and late season, especially for bikes and riders. But don't forget, the associate might just be praying for someone to ring up and say, we're going to call it off. Don't be afraid to call it off. I know we like riding in all weathers, we're passionate, but very little learning can take place when the weather conditions and the temperatures are so bad, and where you can't really concentrate because all you're thinking about is having a cup of tea and getting your electric blanket on. So we won't have any reservation in cancelling a National Observer QA due to weather, rain or temperature. So please follow our advice and make it comfortable. I use Sean's advice, which I think is the best thing. Advanced driving and riding should be enjoyed, not endured. So please consider this. Okay, so Robbie.
But next, giving the relevant guidance to achieve the aim of the session. The important thing is that you remain focused at all times during the session and stay alert. You can absolutely guarantee that if you take your eye off them for 1 second, that'll be the very time that that they'll do something that you wish, well, we should have been able to do something about that. So yeah, just make sure that you stay alert. Your safety and their safety is paramount, and their safety is in your hands when you're giving that guidance session. Be positive. Evaluate the associates driving and riding, and offer guidance as required, but say be positive. Remember that sandwich approach. Look for the good, deliver some guidance with development issues, but then finish in a positive way. Don't overload them with too many things that they've not done correctly. Try and praise them for the things that they have done correctly. And again, ask them open questions to gauge what their thought process is while they were developing their riding or driving plans, and just try and pick from that what they've done well. And again, as we said before, end on a positive note. Start by observing the key elements of the ride first. Always safety must come first, and part of that is keeping control of the associates, and be prepared if there's a safety element in the ride or the drive. Be prepared to stop and have a little conversation about it, and then look for a pattern or theme in the ride or the drive. There's always going to be patterns that develop, whatever they are, system faults, whatever. There's going to be something that develops. So summarise the development areas for the associate, but don't overload them. Choose no more than 3. I always go no more than 3. 3 things for them to look at and to think about. Any more than that, a long list of faults and criticisms will just demoralise them. We don't want to do that. 3, no more than 3 development areas, and then obviously that for each of those we'll provide development plans later in the debrief. Next slide, please, Rob. So present new learning material in a manageable step-by-step parts. It's the old phrase, or is it, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? If they've got lots and lots of things that need to do, say just pick out the 3 most important things and concentrate on them rather than overload them with things that they're just going to get demoralized with. So be prepared to demonstrate a flexible approach. You might need to do every associate's different. They're all going to learn in different ways, different sessions. They might want to have a demonstration ride or drive to see it demonstrated for them. They might accept pictures, anything. There's lots and lots of different ways of doing it out there. So just learn your own approach. But as I say, don't overload them with instructions and guidance, and make use of those effective open questions. Each one of those competencies provides you with a question. You just got to add to it: who, what, why, when, how. Dead and easy. Or is it 33 makes 2, Steve? Is that one of your phrases?
Yeah. 11 times 3 makes 2.
Something like that. So yeah, easy to form those questions and develop those open questions, explore the associates' knowledge of the competencies. And over to you, Steve.
Thank you. So, debriefing, again, use the book. The most effective part of a guidance session, in my opinion, and most of our opinions, is the actual debrief, the hot debrief. This is where we've gone out for a ride, we've seen something, and now we relate it back to the book, and we start those wonderful open questions to find out what was inside the associate's mind when they were driving or riding. What did they do? Why did they do it? What was the benefit of it? And again, by doing that, we're involving the associate. If we're asking the questions and they're giving the explanation, they're doing the most of the talking, and we should be doing most of the listening. They're explaining their thought process. We're getting a good idea of, are they doing it right? Are they doing it for the right reasons? Do they know what it says in the book? The competency statements, for me, the best thing that's ever come out of this advanced driver rider course logbook. The competency sheets gives you a structure of how to formulate the debrief. We've already mentioned about the 5WH, the who, what, why, when, where, and how. That's 6 particular questions that you could ask on any one of those competencies. So for any competency, you could have a multitude of questions of why did you do that? What was the benefit of it? How could you do that differently? But it keeps it focused on the actual session. And we can relate that back then to significant development areas. Yeah. So we may have identified a pattern, something about gears. Yeah, there's lots of gear changing, but there's no brake light coming on. We've now identified a system approach where they're using gears to slow down. So we can look back to the book, the competency sheets, and then identify the gear areas. Look at the questions. How did you lose speed? What was the benefit of losing speed through gears? What's the disadvantages? What about cold weather, etc.? But looking at the most important things first, the must, the should, and the could. This helps you prioritize without actually overloading the associate, i.e., well, I must deal with this, and ideally I should also deal with this. And if there's time and I'm not going to overload them, I could also bring this in. But if it's a huge subject matter and it's a must, that's the elephant we have to deal with, and we can only eat that at a bite at a time. Again, relate the debrief back to the specific incidents. On that bend with the white transit towards, on the white line, double white line, the male with the dog on a short lead that was going ape. Little things that will help recall the specific situation you want to talk about. Again, relate the debrief back to the competency sheets and get the open questions to find out what was in the mind of the associate at that time and what if could be done differently. Don't forget, compliment the associate for the effort, not just achievement. Robbie's favourite trick that I pinched of him, and I've pinched many of him, when I say to associates on observers, give me 2 things that you were really happy about on that drive. And I love the expression that they get. 2. I can tell you loads where I weren't happy with. They find it very difficult to look at something in a positive nature. Human nature, we tend to go to the negative first. That's associates and observers. So try and lift them. If you lift them and get the positives out, be more willing to engage and to talk. And once you say, well, what could you have done different? I guarantee they'll be more willing to actually mention it. Landmarks, brilliant. All police officers used to navigate by pubs and kebab houses. It always works, never fails. So find something that works for them. What is it that they like? Something in that area that you will all identify with, personal landmarks or local landmarks. You need to develop and recall memory. But this goes back to what David said. You can't remember everything. Find out the main things. Think in areas. Think in mnemonics. Robbie uses things like P for position, S for speed. You know, think about the things that you help you. Trying to debrief a chronological 2-hour drive is going to be virtually impossible, which is why we say the aims and objectives of the session need to be the focus of the development plan or the development talk, the debrief. And by using the competency sheets, you're going to be able to nail the specific parts. As you're asking questions using the actual competencies, it will remind you of the places that you want to talk about and the things you want to talk about, rather than doing that chronological debrief. Develop your own personal style. Don't be afraid to experiment. Yeah. Listen carefully to what the associate has to say. This is important. Don't just ask questions and wait for your next opportunity to talk. Listen carefully. Communication is 2-way. Again, concentrate on the main issues, avoiding overloading. Remember the must, should, could. We can't deal with everything. The associate can't deal with everything. The competency sheets will help you focus on the main points. Again, the development plan will help the associate develop the points that you just debriefed. Use the development sheets, use the competency sheets. This will already be reviewing, this will already be making your development plan. Yeah. Again, always finish on a positive note and encourage the associate to go away and practice. and look forward to coming back to the next session. You're looking forward to seeing the development they've made. Put the emphasis on that the development comes in the practice sessions, not on the actual session on the road. Encourage the associate to practice the driving and riding skills. This is so important. They've got to understand and be aware of that. And be careful of your own words. We talked about the 5WH, who, what, why, when, and where. Be careful of the word why. Yeah. One of the hints and tips is, I liked what you did there. Tell me why you did it, rather than just saying, why did you do that? Same question, two different ways. Okay, Robbie? Test ready. Now, here's the big thing. What is test ready? So we've got 2, 3, 2, and 1. The book defines a score of 2 as satisfactory or consistently develops the competency. In other words, test ready. Use the competency sheets to evidence both competency and consistency. Most of you will have seen or heard about the 3-tick approach, where 1 is an incident, 2 could be a coincidence, but 3 or more is starting to demonstrate a pattern or a trend. So use the competency sheets to put multiple ticks to see when you've seen it. Maybe on a different run, you might not want to see it all on the same run, but after 2 or 3 runs, if they're doing the same thing consistently, they are getting ready for test. We can move on to the next competency or the next development plan. And remember, this is important, don't overtrain. We don't want people to think about a first. First is an iconic thing with lots of people are never ever going to be able to get it. People who are capable of first might not get it because everything has to go right on the day. So don't talk about first. It can be very demoralizing when somebody expects a first and gets a really good solid pass that they should be proud of. So again, don't overscore, don't overemphasize it. David?
So moving on to useful information. Next slide, please, Rob. So advanced driver assistance systems. We live in changing times and technology is moving on, and we need to move on with it, and we need to be familiar with the systems that are coming into use with it on cars and bikes. We're all familiar with things like cruise control, speed limiters, but nowadays they seem to be adding more and more by the week. Automated lane keeping, autonomous engine braking, blind spot monitoring, drowsiness monitoring, intelligent speed assist, park assist, TPS monitoring, ABS, engine warning lights, engine modes, e-clutches recently with Hondas. So it's something that we need to be aware of. We can't advise somebody if we don't understand these systems ourselves. So not only encourage the associate to understand all the systems fitted to the vehicle, but you need to understand them too. So consider doing some research. Do test drives. If you've never driven an electric vehicle, get along to Tesla and do a test drive. Get on YouTube. If you've got friends that have got different types of vehicles, ask them to go through them with you. Yeah, it really is going to take a little bit of work because it is becoming more and more prevalent now in all the vehicles, and it's something that we need to be aware of. And because we're a road safety organisation, should we really be insisting that the associate turn any of these off? No. Let's get ourselves familiar with the way that they operate, the correct working of them, and encourage, as I say, let's teach the associate to use the systems fitted properly. It makes sense, doesn't it? So encourage the associate to get them systems embedded in the brain. And as I say, remember, it's their choice, it's their vehicle. If they want to switch them off, they can. Fine. I personally, I don't like lane assist. I always switch that off. But if they want to leave them switched on, let them switch them on. Don't insist that they turn them off. Dash cams are another thing that some observers do tell associates to switch off, but it's becoming more and more common nowadays for particularly younger drivers and riders that it's a condition of their insurance that their dash cam remains operating when they're out in the vehicle. So bear that in mind. Don't insist that you switch it off. And likewise, sat navs. Sat navs can provide useful information, and we should be taking in as much information as we possibly can. So why should we insist on the sat nav being switched off? So yeah, use it. If it's on and they want to use it, let them. And lastly, digital speedos. It's quite common. I've done QAs recently where I was criticised for reaching 1 mile an hour over the speed limit on a digital speedo. Should we really getting hung up on that? Not too many years ago, you'd be able to hardly tell if the vehicle was doing 60, 62 because of the width of the needle. So not something that we should need to get too upset about. Obviously, if it's going consistently well above the speed limit, that's a different matter. But if every now and it just creeps up to 61, 62 and it's de-restricted and then drops down again, is that really a major issue? So yeah, don't get too worried about that. So next slide, please, Rob. So a few hints and tips, some of the things that we picked up on when we're doing our assessments. System faults, double system applications, getting the system in the wrong order, all these sort of things frequently coming up, and they're not always, and they're sometimes what we demonstrate in a QA, and they're not always picked up by the observers. So just be aware of that, particularly double system applications. If they can often give an indication of all the faults, observation, anticipation, planning, needing development, and that can show itself in speed of approach issues, rush gear changes, secondary braking, all these sort of things. So it's just key thing, watch the associate, particularly watch their feet. What are they doing with their feet? Likewise, motorcyclists, watch their feet. Watch their front brake. Are they braking correctly? Are they using the brakes at the appropriate times? Are they braking in line with roadcraft? Roadcraft talks about applying the braking effort to both wheels with sensitivity and judgment. So are they using both brakes, or are they just using one, or very often not using the rear brake at all? So yeah, just watch what they're doing. Consider asking them to remove panniers if need be. If you're not getting a good view of what they're doing with their feet, then yeah, ask them to take the panniers off for the next ride out, and let's give you a really good close look at what they're doing. And then watch the feet, watch the gear changing, watch their braking. It'll give you a good indication of what they're doing. If they're slowing and there's no brake light coming on, are they using the gears to slow? Oh, you'll know it all. But yeah, unless you're able to see these things, you're going to miss them. So get yourself in a position where you can see them. So quick shifters. Sean loves his quick shifters. Yep, they're good. They're good. Yeah, but just make sure that they're not using the quick shifters to slow the bike down, and they're using the gears to slow. That happens quite a bit. And block changing. Block changing, there's a difference between block changing and missing gears. If we're still in the acceleration phase, then we shouldn't really be missing gears. If we get to the selected speed or the appropriate speed, the speed limits, and we go into more economic gear, that's different. But if we're still in that acceleration phase, we shouldn't be going from third to fifth and still trying to accelerate or whatever. So yeah, just keep your eye on that one. And then auto boxes. They're great again, but a common fault that we see is that people are entering the hazard still on the brakes. They've just not started the system early enough, and as a result, they haven't given themselves, Robbie's favourite phrase, time to react. So yeah, just keep an eye on that one. And next slide, Robbie. So motorcycle observers, number one thing, don't get line astern. Get in a position where you can get a good view of the associates and the road ahead. You've got to remember that your safety is paramount. Yes, you want to be able to watch what they're doing. You want to be able to watch their foot movements, but you've got to keep an eye on that road ahead. So get yourself in a good position that you're always going to be completely safe. And as I said earlier, look at the foot movements in relation to brakes and gears. Are they using both brakes? Are they changing gear in the right places? Are they using the gears to slow? Are they doing all these sort of things at the same time that you're doing them, or are they doing it in the wrong order? So yeah, just keep your eye on that. And don't get too far back. If you're too far back, you won't see the development areas, you won't see the foot movements. But again, also bear in mind that don't get drawn in to their errors. It's very easy to do. If you're coming into a series of bends and you're just focusing on them, then if they go into that bend a little bit too quickly, it's quite easy for you to get drawn in as well. So don't ever compromise your safety. And next one, please, Rob. And the car drivers, you need to be familiar with the vehicle operating systems, particularly if they differ from your own. If you drive a manual and you're out with an associate in an electric vehicle or automatic, you're going to need to be proficient in all those things. So as I said earlier, consider doing test drives on other types of vehicles. Tesla are very good. They don't object to people coming in and doing test drives, even if you're not planning on buying one. They don't mind. So yeah, consider doing that. Get on YouTube, watch a few videos. Reg Local's always good. He seems to be popular. So give him a watch. And if you drive an auto, if you do drive an auto, try get access to a manual just to refresh your memory. I'm sure you'll have started off with a manual at some stage, and it's like riding a bike. You'll never forget, but always good to be able to keep on top of it. Try and avoid distracting the driver. Little things like fiddling with your pens and paper is one thing. If you're writing notes, hopefully you'll have told the associate that you will be writing notes, whether it be good things, it won't always be bad things, it might be good things, and you wish to refresh your memory. Try not to distract them. Don't talk too much. Try and control the level of conversation in the car. Particularly try to avoid over-instructing. It's quite common, it certainly was when I was examining the DVSA, that you'd get candidates for test, and the first time that they come to challenging situations is when they've got the examiner sat next to them. Previously, the instructor has just basically talked them through. All they've done is steer the car and do what they've been told. So unless the safety is compromised, let them decide what they want to do. Let them formulate their own driving plans. And so unless safety is compromised, let them make their own mistakes and they'll learn from it. So just be prepared to just give them that little bit of extra leeway, as long as it doesn't compromise any sort of safety. And as Steve said earlier on, respect the personal space of the driver. That midpoint, that midline of the car, the only time that we should be crossing that at all is if something's gone dreadfully wrong and you need to take control of the steering. Otherwise, there should be absolutely no reason to cross that midline of the car. And above all, concentrate. Observe the associate. Keep focused. Don't let your mind wander. That will be the time that something will happen. And you really need to keep focused to maintain that safety. And the other consideration, of course, if they're getting tired, if you're getting tired, then perhaps your associate is too, and perhaps it's time that you took a break. So yeah, consider that. Next slide, please, Rob.
Thank you, Dave. Right, your performance, your driving or riding performance, one of the things that I really bang on about is CPD, continuous professional development. If you haven't got a system of CPD in the group, consider it. A lot of people ask us, what standard do we need to ride to? Do we need to ride to a master's? Do we need to ride to a first? First of all, you need to be able to ride systematically. Now, when we set a National Observer QA, you pick the route. It's your route. You're planning it. You're riding it. You're familiar with it. You're driving it. You know where all the potholes are. You know where all the hazards are. So realistically, if you're familiar with your route, then you should be riding at a standard that is way above that of associate. Okay, it doesn't have to be a first, but it would be a very good test pass getting up towards a first, because you are so familiar with it, you can actually apply the principles. And this goes with making sure that the route for the associate is short and familiar to yourself, so you can actually drive it in your mind. Or if you're following on a motorcycle, what would you be doing and where would you be doing it? And more important, is the associate doing what we would be doing, or are they doing it before you or later than you? This will give you some things to focus on. If you don't get it right, if you can't get it right, how are you going to spot if the associate can't get it right? So by familiarizing yourself with your route, if you're doing a specific bends and corners and roundabouts, use a shorter route and familiarize yourself, and actually plan where you will make the braking phase, the gear changing phase, the speed phase, etc. So you can actually superimpose your riding plan, driving plan onto the associate. Does it match? Are they late? Are they compressing the system? Ask yourself, what would I be doing? And if they're matching what you would be doing, we're well on the way to getting those associates up to test standard. Next slide, please, Robbie. So, resources. This is important. There are a lot of issues out there that we need to be familiar with. We're not all experts, and we can come a crop at any time. We live in a very difficult world. It's diverse. We have to be very careful what we say and do. So please go onto the IAM Road Smart website and find out where these policies and procedures and advice are. Familiarize yourself with it. You don't have to be able to quote them verbatim, but you need to be aware. Make sure that your group, your colleagues are aware. Discuss them. Yeah. Uphold the reputation of IAM Road Smart at all times. Set a positive example, not only in road safety, but in attitude as well. Be courteous and respectful to others, including the public. Set a good example. If we're riding in liveried or driving in liveried vehicles, and some of us do, you know, make sure that we represent, we are an ambassador for not only your group, but for IAM Road Smart as well. This is important. It's difficult, but we've all sort of come across it, challenging inappropriate behaviour. We're living in a world now where we can't acquiesce, we can't ignore. We have a duty to challenge inappropriate behaviour. There's ways and means of doing it. Yeah. Discuss any problems or issues in a reasonable and constructive manner. Don't let things develop into a complaint. Yeah, it's like the elephant, a little bit at a time. Deal with it when it's a small issue, when it can be dealt with by words of advice. If you're not sure, ask for guidance. Find out what it says on the website. Speak to your observer team, speak to your group, speak to your committee, speak to the ASDMs if necessary. We're there to help. Remember, safeguarding and zero tolerance. If you don't know about it, you need to be aware of it. Make sure you go onto the website and familiarize yourself with it. And as I say, if you're not sure, ask for advice. Discuss it with your team. You're not individuals, you're all part of a team. David?
Next slide, please, Rob. We're going to move on now to social media behaviours. Social media can be a good thing for promoting the IAM, promoting our aims, but unfortunately, it can also be quite a negative thing with some of the keyboard warriors out there. So just a reminder, don't be abusive, rude, or hurtful to others at all. And that includes any of the contributors of the IAM Road site, the Road Smart site and staff, and the individual and the organisation itself. Stay on the topic, but remember that the forum isn't a place for individual grievances or personal concerns. If you've got grievances, if you've got concerns, if you can't resolve them with the members of your group, then contact the ASDMs and we can do that for you. The social media out in the public gaze isn't the place for these sort of grievances to be aired. It does nothing more than put people off. If we're arguing amongst ourselves as members, potential new members are just going to be, no, I'm not interested in that, and they'll go elsewhere. So just remember that. So don't post inflammatory or aggressively negative comments about the IAM, about Road Smart or our content. We're happy for constructive debate, but unfortunately, we reserve the right to edit, hide, or remove posts that we believe are damaging to our reputation, and people have been removed from the sites, and we don't want that. And so, if you've got any issues, raise them with us behind closed doors, and let's get them resolved out of the public gaze. So keep it civil. Don't use swear words or offensive language. Say any comments will be removed, and going back to our policies on racism, sexism,
Wishful thinking, Robbie.
There we go. So observer resources, where do we find them? We still get asked where do we find them, and they're readily available. The short answer is on dashboard. So all the IM volunteers have access to Headlight. So all you guys at trainee observers, if you've not got yet got access to it, then you can get that arranged. Headlight is available, and it's available to you. So get access to that, give you some useful information, and you can do that by simply updating your profile and keeping your profile updated. You'll keep getting it. Lots of useful information there, all up-to-date information. So yeah, make use of it. And if you go into dashboard, all the run sheets are on dashboard. Lots of road safety resources under volunteer resources. So have a look in there, go in there, explore them. You'll be surprised what's in there. It's some really, really useful information. And if you're one of those who've got darts access, you'll find that, and you're unsure of what to do with darts, you'll find that there's loads of useful videos on there now. Only 2-minute long, but they're just absolutely brilliant for guiding you through things on darts. So do take a look at that. Next one, please, Rob. So to get towards the end, so reflect on your own performance and consider, could I have done something a little bit different with that particular associate? Could I have got my message across in a different way? Could I have delivered the instruction differently? So yeah, be prepared to self-evaluate your own performance, and if need be flexible. Try it a different way next time, and ask your associate for feedback. Ask them, what did they think went well? What did they think could have been done differently? And we're learning every single day. Every day is a school day. So yeah, ask them. And if you can't get any answers to the questions that you're after with your chief observer, your training leads, and your own groups, then feel free to give us a ring or an email, and we'll always happy to do whatever we can for you. And that's next slide, please, Rob. So that's the end of the webinar this evening. Thank you all for the passion that you show in everything you do for IM Road Smart. It really is appreciated. Your dedication, your enthusiasm, it's just brilliant. And I'd say all the SDMs, all the staff at HQ really do appreciate everything you do. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night from both of us.
Thank you, everyone. Good night, and the football starts in 5 minutes. Thank you for the thumbs up, guys.